Welcome to Coffee Cam.
I'm Christian Borman. I've been blogging and posting about cars, bikes, food, tech, and all sorts of things for years. So I figured it's time to start vlogging. Yeah, if I were you, I'd run for the hills. Or stick around and see what happens.
Okay, so here we are again with some more coffee shenanigans. This time I have some slightly warmer water, which I'll get to in a second, for espresso. We have the Monmouth espresso blend. I'm not using the Kenyan this time, and it has been ground for espresso. And that is lucky because we have an espresso maker. Now, my personal favourite is the Wacaco Nano now, and previously my favourite was the Wacaco Minipresso. And I have taken them everywhere. Particularly, there was a period when I took them a lot, especially travelling to the US, because the coffee there is generally filter is the preference rather than espresso, and I do need my espresso. Now, I will annoy some of the coffee perfectionists who say you need to measure coffee. I really do not want to measure coffee by weight, and I do not want to measure water by weight. I'm sure that it is a lot more precise. However, I personally just either cannot be bothered, or unfortunately do not have the time, or seriously do not think that that extra marginal gain in getting the exact amount of coffee and water is worth the extra effort. Now, you may think differently, and if you do, well then, yeah, by all means measure. However, I am going to be using, I did normally use a scoop, and this is when the people who measure stuff will really lose their stuff. But yeah, I managed to lose a scoop, or somebody lost it for me, but now I am having to put this in here, which you need to make sure that it's dry, because if it's not dry, obviously you'll get problems, and it also creates a lot of waste. Now, as you've seen from my Nespresso video, it's important to put the coffee on the floor. It adds to the flavour. And for this video, I've managed to forget the tamp. I do think the tamp is quite important, but we're going to skip it for this video. I will make sure I tamp the B-roll that you get of the actual coffee being done. And if it isn't, well, I'll probably tell you otherwise and let you know. But it is important that you don't fill this completely. And a lot of people do make that mistake. You don't want to compress the coffee too much, because what will happen is that it will create channels. So I'm not going to tamp this one, but I am going to make sure that there's no coffee around the outsides to stop the coffee getting into places. And we are going to screw that together with the wonderful action that it does. Now, one of the things that you get with the Nanopresso, which I never got with the Minipresso, is sometimes you can get coffee escaping from the sides, which can be annoying, especially if you're in a hurry or don't want to be messy at that point in time. It says as he drops it. And we're going to measure the water. Now, generally I do 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get a temperature of about 90 degrees, and that's what I prefer for my espresso, but you can experiment. I find with the Minipresso you can get away with some pretty low temperatures, and I've even made some pretty cold pressed Minipresso and Nanopresso, and it actually works out pretty okay. Especially because one of the uses I have for this, one of my great pleasures in life, is when I'm on holiday. It's a very guilty pleasure I will share with you. See, that's how you clean the thermometer. When I'm on holiday, one of my greatest pleasures is to have a nice big lunch and then go and get myself a pot of this with some extra hot water and go and have a siesta on a hammock on the beach. And when you wake up, looking at the sea, listening to the palm trees and the waves, you can make yourself a lovely espresso. And that is when you really, the concept of exactly how hot your water is, how many grams of water did you have, etc. Really, it isn't that important. The important thing is that you enjoy it. So I'm going to do this first one here. usually have to do about 7 pushes to get it out. Now, a lot of people try and press this too hard and it either leaks or it doesn't go through. And one thing you shouldn't do is what I'm doing now, which is wait a long time between your first press and the other presses. And also what I generally try and do is, as you can see, I'm using the much bigger tank from the barista kit, because depending on how the coffee is going, I will sometimes make it a longer or a shorter coffee, depending on the creamer I've got. With the Minipresso, it's a slightly smaller, at least it seems to me a slightly smaller pod, and so I'll generally do about 20 presses. With the Nanopresso and the normal basket, I do about 25 presses to make a slightly longer one. But I have gone as far as 30 or 40, and this larger chamber will let you do that. I've fallen out of favour with the double basket because it just requires probably the level of precision that you would get from measuring. But I've had mixed results. Sometimes it's made me an amazing coffee, sometimes it's just got stuck. But I think it is more to do with the grind size than anything else, because it's never got stuck with sort of commercially bought espresso ground coffee. It's generally with the more precision, which I think is ground a little bit finer than what you'll get from a general cafe company. So what I would normally do is I've used the extra hot coffee to warm this cup, and so I may or may not use this one, but it has made a pretty good espresso. It's not going to go to waste. And I'll show you now another bit of video, probably even with a Minipresso as well, because I like spoiling you like that. Let's go to that. But first of all, that is a nice espresso. Lovely. Welcome to Coffee Cam. So we now are firmly back with Coffee Cam. And which one do we like the best? Well, to make this more interesting, I can work out, but I don't actually know right now which one is which. The reason I can work out is that when I was polishing these glasses to make the photography as best as I possibly can at the moment, which I know you'll say is not that great yet, and I know, but after this I will look for the blemish that I saw when I was polishing the cups. So this is a true bland tasting, and let us see. That is a good long macchiato. And that is a better long macchiato. And if I look for the blemish in the glass, I will tell you right now which was which. Wow, in this occasion, my Minipresso made the better coffee. And of course, that can just be down to a lot of things. I did have the scoop, and I know there are certain people on the internet who are going to lose their shit again over the scoop thing. So let me make clear, when I say a scoop, I mean the same scoop with the same type of coffee, the same grind of coffee that you usually use, right? So I wouldn't generally use a scoop as a measure of coffee. However, if you have the scoop which came with a Minipresso, which is measured for that Minipresso capsule holder, and obviously meant to go with a espresso grind of coffee, then you know, unless we're really clutching at straws, it is going to have a pretty regular amount. Now the difference is I didn't have that scoop for the Nanopresso, which I'm going to have to go and buy. This did happen to me with the Minipresso, and the guys were lovely. They did send me a new one for a very small amount of money. I think the postage from China was about 4 times that. But again, I love that kind of service, and I will happily pay $20 to ship a $5 piece or something like that from China for a company who is prepared to do that for their customers. I will have to do the same again for the Nanopresso. And yeah, I wouldn't take this as a conclusion that the Minipresso is better than the Nanopresso. It's just that making this whilst making a movie, it did make a nicer cup. So I shall be using it again more often. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you did, you know what to do. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and endure me doing more of this kind of stupid stuff.